My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
You can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for
It
them.
is worth it.
Just focus on the next
Doesn't
step.
matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing
That
something.
is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's a
anything else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to
Oh,
Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these days,
love
right?
working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about,
hindsight, that
I've
was,
also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
it
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
Look, I'll hit us off because I've got some lovely things to say about you, and I'd like to say some not so lovely, but no, I haven't, but we'll see. So look, really good to have you with us, Chloe. You know, I've enjoyed you over the years. The information you give is second to none. So your story is one I'm genuinely excited for listeners, especially students who might be wondering about agriculture and whether it has a place for them or not. And I think people like you are just gold in that space. Here's your story. You headed to Massey University in Palmerston North after school to study a Bachelor of Agri-Science. With that classic bit of wisdom in mind, better to have a degree and not need it than need it and not have it. You've been refreshingly honest about your journey too, that C's can in fact get degrees, and instead of slowing you down, that mindset opened doors, and you're actually one of about 3 or 4 to have mentioned that, so it's an interesting concept. You decided you wanted to stay on the rural professional side of the farm gate, jumped into the Farm Source graduate program with Fonterra, packed your bags for the South Island and started forging your own path down there, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today. Since then, your career has been firmly rooted in New Zealand's food and fibre sector, with dairy at the heart of it, because that's where your passion lies. These days, your job sees you managing operations across Fonterra-owned farms in the Upper North Island, working closely with farm management and staff to optimise performance, understand the role those farmers play for farm shareholders, and keep everything moving in the right direction. It's big picture thinking mixed with that practical on-the-ground decision-making. And that's just a part of your picture, because alongside that, you and your husband own Jones Agri Fencing, where Corey runs the day-to-day jobs and does the quality workmanship, and you bring the strength of numbers, compliance and administration and strategy. Doesn't everyone's wife do that? I'm not sure. I think they do, because mine does. The third hat that you recently retired from, something we would like to touch on today, and that's the chair of the New Zealand Young Farmers, which is a 1,700 strong organisation supporting young people aged 15 to 31 across the food and fibre sector. That's going to be that perfect connection to kids at school, I think. And I remember you sending me photos years ago of kids standing on stages having won stuff. You know, so that link's really important. You have a passion for people in the community, from being dragged along to your first Young Farmers meeting years ago to leading the organisation nationally. You've seen firsthand how vital those clubs are, not just for farmers, but for anyone involved in connecting rural life. You've been a strong voice for showing people, young people, that they can add value, get connected, and build a strong future. The fact I think you're a head student at your school shows leadership is something that probably comes naturally to you. You've said it perfectly. Not everyone's journey starts with knowing exactly what they're going to do. But if young New Zealanders can see opportunities in the food and fibre sector, feel passionate about it and feel connected, we're much less likely to lose them. Who's this for? This podcast is for future farmers, agricultural workers, scientists, lovers of quality food production, and those that want to become part of the science and technology involved in farming and all of the agricultural outputs. People who love the outdoors, love growing things and dealing with livestock. This is a rich and diverse sector, and it is absolutely the backbone of our economy. So having you today is fantastic. Welcome to the guest speaker, Chloe. Thank you for being here. Can I take you back to school? I mentioned leadership, but there was a lot more that went on at school for you, particularly, I suppose, subjects, because a lot of those kids who are really involved in farming, sometimes my reflection would be get a bit lost or not sure what to take and how to go about it. So, yeah, tell me about school.
School was a really interesting time. Yeah, it feels like quite a long time ago now, even though, well, it kind of wasn't, but I think it was about 10 years ago I left, so that's pretty scary. For me, it was fascinating because I did a lot of sort of extracurricular stuff, and that's probably where the C's Get Degrees came from. Like I really enjoyed playing basketball. I enjoyed adventure racing, and so if you're doing that, schoolwork sometimes suffered, I found. And so, yeah, the topics that I had pretty much until my final year really had nothing to do with the path I was going to take. I was just sort of taking a couple that I really enjoyed along the way. I remember doing metalwork and woodwork and sort of those different types of things, and then a bit of outdoor education so that you actually had a bit of fun because you need that at school.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite diverse. But yeah, I was keen to go towards engineering. I remember I was doing calculus a year ahead, which was great, but very, very challenging. And I just really enjoyed adventure racing at the time and sort of wanted to just get stuck into that. And so I dropped out of that and went into biology. And I just remember that pivotal moment sitting there in biology going, okay, what am I going to do now? Because I can't go into engineering because I've kind of just written that topic off because I'm now in statistics. So what does it look like? And that was where everything sort of changed.
I probably missed a trick because your future might have been pinned more to your childhood. Were you a farm girl?
Sort of, but not really. Great question. Like my grandparents have always had dairy farms. I started with one when I was a kid and they've slowly grown. But mum was a hairdresser and dad was an electrician. So we were out there on the weekends mucking around, but I wouldn't say that I was like heavily exposed through my parents for that. So it wasn't necessarily like, hey, I really wanted to grow up and be a farmer or in the
Right.
farming industry.
Okay, well, let's touch on that. You said engineer, you're sitting at school, if we can remember back to that 16, 17-year-old, year 12, 13 type kid. What made you go to Massey? What was the turning point for you going agriculture is the thing for me?
So because my grandparents had the farms, mum and I were actually relief milking every second weekend on one of them, sort of helping support. So she had a life point change and went from hairdressing into farming, so to support out there with the hope of spending more time with us kids, which didn't quite happen. A farming or any farming family, you'll sort of know you can end up pretty busy. But yeah, she got roped into milking and I was 13 at the time. Got stuck into that and then I started milking on my own when I was 15. And so it was that sort of moment when I went, well, I'm in biology. I enjoy getting up under the stars at 4 a.m. to go milk these cows for some reason. Maybe Massey could be a good place to go. And it was, Granddad had always said, if you want a job, you can come out here and start farming. But a lot of people, well, him and other people said, you're better off to have that degree and you don't need it later than you need it and then you just don't have it. Doesn't mean you're uneducated, it doesn't mean you're any less, but it can be a ticket to a game.
Cool. Can you tell me then in tertiary, what was the boy-girl ratio? Is one thing I'm interested in because and then also how many kids were pure farm kids and how many had just somehow miraculously decided to go farming? Because I'm going to go, my own guess would be probably 80% of them have something to do with farming because there's some connection, like you, a grandparent. Well, yeah, so did you get a feel of that when you were there, what the makeup, one, boys, girls, and of those who were already dead set farmers and those who were just for whatever reason exploring it?
I don't know what it would be like now. Like a lot can change in 10 years, but it was certainly, I actually want to say it was turning towards being a lot more female dominated, which is really interesting. But I think we're slowly seeing that come through the industry as well with a lot more, sort of different genders coming into the equation. It's not just a male's job these days, if I can say that type thing. So yeah, it certainly, classes were different and changing. In terms of farm kids, I would say, yeah, you like probably 70-30, like mostly they've come off farming families or whether it's sheep and beef or, they're all different, horticulture, dairy. Dairy was not just the main one, but then you did have different students that were there that were completely from Auckland or Wellington and that's quite important too, because, they can be your future engineers or technologists that you need to work out how you change things in milk, their brain works differently. So it's quite important too.
Yeah, well, I think you touched on something there because, like even the viticulturalist needs to learn that agricultural science stuff. So we've got to, maybe not always think it's dairy and sheep. Our agriculture industry is massive, and learning about the science and the soils and the climate and the environment is, it's a lot. There's a lot into it.
Yeah, and you've hit a great point there, actually. Like we used to do viticulture back in geography, and that was huge. And that was always something I really enjoyed. And I did look into, do I go into that as an option coming out of Massey? I had no idea where I was going. But if you keep your options open, at least you've got anywhere. But that was coming from someone who knew nothing about viticulture except for having exposure through going to nature on some great school trips. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I do like the idea. I think there's a lot of traditional farming families who are going to send their kids to the Masseys and to the Lincolns, even though they probably know how to farm.
Yeah.
I think dads and mums and grandparents want you to have that new science, that new understanding. There seems to be a real understanding of that. So take me through your learning then. You apply for Massey, you get in relatively easily, I would have thought. How did transitioning to Massey go? Did you stay in a hall? And then what was the learning? What sort of topics? What did you learn about in your degree?
You're really taking me back here. And I did do some learning, which was good. Did a lot of partying, as you do. But that's why I didn't go to Lincoln, because I was like, that'll be too much for me. They have a very different reputation. But yeah, it was, I guess my transition was probably one I do remember quite vividly. I think I shocked my parents, and I've never forgotten it. Real busy all summer, and just I knew the date was coming, then they dropped me off or, traveled down with them. And they sort of went to a open orienteering thing, and then the next day sort of, okay, see you later, and off they drove. And I think it was worse for them than it was for me, because I was keeping myself busy. But I remember that transition being, just reflecting on it, going, probably could have done that a little bit better, just from a parental perspective of hanging out with them and helping them. Because I think when you're the baby or the last one to go, that's an interesting phase of life that they're about to go through, but you as well. And it is a big change moving. So it was about 4.5 hours drive for me. So doable, but far enough that you're still away from home. I moved into the halls, so I was really lucky to get a scholarship, and that was one of the things I spent quite a lot of time on in my last year, because Lisa Marshall, the German teacher, used to always say it is the cheapest form of money you'll ever get. You'll spend an hour on a scholarship and get $10,000, and I wish I could just do that these days and get that or anything. But it's so valuable, and so I was pretty lucky to get one of those into the halls. And that was awesome, because you're living on campus, you've sort of got some of your meals catered for, and you can immerse yourself into the student culture. So, really enjoyed that. This isn't to do as much with what you studied, but I'm also the youngest, and I remember that same clarity of what's the gap between you and your sibling? So 2 years, so 4 for the oldest. Well, and between me and my sister Paige, as you know, it was 4 closer to 5, and I'd been just the only one at home for a while, and I remember thinking, when I leave, this is going to be weird for everyone, but especially them, because it's empty. You're leaving them empty nest, and I think that's something that the youngest sibling, clearly you and I thought about it, but maybe not everyone does, that the parents are going through quite a big change.
You had the benefit, though, Grace, of not being the favourite child, so it probably helped.
Yeah, it's true.
Rough gig.
Yeah. And I also want to put a shout out for that scholarship thing, because my daughter works in the Waikato Student Association, or, when people enroll in things, and the amount of scholarships that go unclaimed or unapplied for, I just think people need to understand they've got to find a way of finding all the scholarships available. And it's that male attitude to work, if you've got 30% that you can offer the job, you go for it anyway. You just don't know. So anyway, it was interesting, your comment about scholarships. So go talk about those learning. Is it quite sciencey? Are you talking soil science papers? Are you talking animal husbandry? What are we learning?
Literally, it's kind of everything, to be honest. So, first year was quite like broad, and then as you went on to second and third year, 3-year degree, it got sort of more specific, which was cool. But first year, yeah, nailing those soil sciences. Trying to think what else we had. We always had a paper sort of around economics and economical climate. You had a course you had to do over a couple papers through, go out to a farm. Here's all our operating expenses, and here's how we actually run our farm. The farmer telling us, and then right, well, how are you going to make a profit off it? And where's your bottom line going to drop out? So it's interesting. A few of the things that I always thought I'll probably never use this, and then some are actually coming into play naturally these days. So that's quite cool. Did a bit of geography. So I did a few climate change elective papers because you can chuck those in. So that was pretty neat. Interesting class to be in if you had a tinfoil hat at times, like some of the people. But I just removed that and I found it really, really fascinating. There's a lot of learnings, chemistry, biology, like some basic things like that. And then they sort of went out of that first year as you went into, like you said, some of the animal husbandry. We had a practical once a week. We'd do different labs, literally go fondle lambs, or what do you call them, rams, bulls. You're learning if they're actually symmetrical, or if they go to the market, will they actually be a good breeder? Like things like that, which, yeah, it's relevant, but yeah, not for me long term. And then, yeah, picking bulls, or, yeah, how you learn about breeding and genetics and different stuff that feeds into the sectors. Yeah.
So there does seem to be a few subjects if you wanted to get into it early. Obviously, you did your bio. Obviously, if a school offers ag court, go for it. But a lot of schools don't. I think our old school is now, but it's only a new thing. It's a bit of science, but you've got to be able to write. Yeah, a bit of geography maybe, but
I think stats is actually pretty needed in a lot of things because I've started now like psych study, and I didn't take any math. I dropped that as soon as one could, and now I'm suffering. So yeah, like you said, stats, English bio. I wish I'd kept taking stats because it pops up in so many different degrees that people get into.
Yeah, it's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is that way that at uni, even if you have to do it, you can they'll give you a special paper, because I was one of those, because I couldn't take Stats 101. I just wasn't good enough. But they'd put you into a special course and dumb it down as much as they could. But there you go. Did you have any on-farm stuff, or is it one of those degrees you're just doing all academics, writing essays, doing all that? Well, you are handling sheep's nuts, but was there practical stuff?
Yeah, there was. That's a great point. So each summer we had to do a practical. So you had to do 2 over the 3 years and then submit those papers back. So for my first summer, I went and worked on a goat farm just on the outskirts of Cambridge. So milked goats, which was a really different experience. Again, another form of an animal that you're milking, but there's that many different ones out there. So that was awesome. Learned a lot there. And then had to apply that back into a paper to submit. And then my second one I'd relief milked on a lot of different farms, and then took those learnings sort of business-wise into the paper and submitted that. You could do sheep and beef or sort of anything, I think, as long as it was, practical. And then, submit that back. I think it looks a little bit different these days, but pretty cool to make you sort of go out and start adventuring into the world. Plus building a network, because you never know, if you do well in those jobs, you actually could get something there later.
Okay, so you do your 3-year degree, you've got your little ticket in your hand, and off you go. What did you do, and how did you do it?
Sat there scratching my head at the end of the last year, wondering what I was going to do. And for me, I've always felt, and a lot of my friends and family know this, like I've got 2 directions. One is I can stay behind the farm gate and milk cows and deal with things on farm, and the other one is sort of where I've ended up, which I call the real professional side at the moment. But I had a lot of people I talked to, and a lot of them said, look, farms are always going to be there. So if you want to go and do something else and learn, then do it now whilst you're sort of young and fresh, and you can always come back. And so there was graduate programs. So that's one awesome thing that does pop out. There's usually Ravensdown, Balance, and some of the banks, and Fonterra had a farm source graduate program, which aligned really, really well with me. So yeah, applied for that program. They put us through our paces in the interview. Quite interesting reflecting on the interview. There's a lot of stuff that they asked us, or the ways that they asked us, and it was how we communicated back they really cared about, but that's probably flowed through into a lot of the jobs I'm in. Communication and stakeholders, and that was what a lot of their questions were based on, which was pretty cool. So yeah, funny where you end up, but yeah, stuck with that. And so that grad program was 2 years, but I did the first year in the service centre in Hamilton. So always said, I was like, don't put me behind the phones, not going to do it. And they put me behind them, and I still did it. So that's good. You live and you learn, but that set me up completely to understand all of our systems, which led into the next job I actually ended up in, which was cool. So
Because I'm thinking you sound very similar to Eva Brackenrig. Her journey was exactly the same. Here's 2 young girls, both leaders at school, but salt of the earth, got a personality. And you're saying that's where the C's didn't matter. And she was the same. That particularly in farming, you've got to have a personality. You've got to be able to engage with multiple people, from the scientists to the farmers. So yeah, I find that really interesting. And they put her on the phones so she could learn the business, but she took that opportunity. I think it was Ravensdown.
Yep.
But I think it's important, and not to look at it as a negative, as a real opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it definitely was. There was a time for us, we were getting calls where farmers would say, hey, this isn't your fault, and they would just go. Because Fonterra just made a $650 million loss, which is huge. It impacts their books, it impacts everyone. So you can understand why they were doing it, but yeah, that was quite challenging. So you learn to navigate some conversations, and you learn some life skills. So exactly, you can take the positive or the challenge out of everything.
Quickly on that, I'm thinking, Chloe, like, do you reckon that helped now when you're dealing with people face to face? Because like you were having these tough conversations, but on a phone, so you could like have your facial reaction or body language be like nervous, and then through that year of doing that, built up education, like understanding, knowing how to respond. So then when it came time where you were in front of people, like you'd already kind of gone through it. I'm just thinking that's another benefit of the phone experience, was you didn't have to be looking them in the eye, having these conversations yet. So that's actually an awesome side part.
It's huge. Yeah, it's massive transferable skills that you learn, and it was huge. The job I went into was in front of farmers next, and they could have chewed me up, and some of them did chewed me up, spat me out, but a lot of them didn't, because I was just upfront and honest with them, and you never bullshit a farmer. So if you don't know something, you just tell them. But I think that's in anything. If I don't know something, I just say, oh, look, I'll come back to you, because I have no clue. I'd rather do that. But you learn a lot of skills in that. And yeah, I was probably pretty fortunate to get a shot into the job that I did. I was 21 versus the average age of the staff in the jobs being 49, that's a pretty substantial difference. So I didn't have that life experience, which created its own sort of challenges at times, but did have a lot of other skills that I could use in the job. So
What is that job? Because you said come back to you, as in they've got a problem, or they're not happy, or what were you trying to achieve?
yeah, so I was an area manager for Farm to Source, and so I had 150 farmers, smallest farm 50 cows, largest 1900, so all sorts of scale, and that was in Otago, and basically you're the messenger for Fonterra, for the cooperative, so telling them what's going on, what's coming out, what's happening with shares, and so they might say, oh, we're doing this in our business and changing, how does that affect our shares, or what's happening with my milk check here, or different things. Hey, I've got a bird in my vat. I've had to dump all this milk. Why? And what's going on? And so you get on the phone with different people, and it could be anything. Yeah, my tank is like every day. Why, Chloe? Why? And you're the messenger, so you're the person they shoot it at.
Right. And how long did you do that for?
So I did that for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was
That sounds
until
like Sounds like an awesome job, because I know, my one or two examples in our life, the bit of penicillin, for whatever reason, the cow still got milked, and the whole vat has to be thrown out and can't go on the tanker, and yeah.
Big implications of things, but it's communicating. So learning that was, it was communication, stakeholders, how do you relay the message? And I always just found if I did go back to them, then you build that trust and rapport, and then they actually start picking up the phone to you in a different way or a different tone, but they'll still ask you the hard questions. So yeah, started to get a few good scars from that. if I can say.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm presuming at some point this Young Farmers is coming up, because it's definitely something I don't want to miss out on, because a lot of kids, that might be a connection or a group they can start looking at. So is that sort of does that come up soon?
Yeah, definitely. That was in that time. So
Okay.
when I was in the service centre, I was going along to Young Farmers and through uni. So university, Massey, Lincoln, and I believe Dunedin have got a Young Farmers Club now, which is awesome. They've just got into their sort of agricultural courses lately. And so, yeah, I sort of got stuck in locally at home when I was relief milking in that second summer. And then when I went away to Massey, got really involved. Like one of my fondest memories was organising a bus trip for 150 students, that was certainly interesting, 4 different pubs that they crawled to and things like that, but a lot of fun, and you meet a lot of different people and whatnot. But yeah, I got dragged along when I was 17, so you can join from 15 to 31, and then before that you're either a junior young farmer or a agri kid. And so, like you said, there's the competitions that you can do as well alongside that. So there's kind of 2 different parts. There's the clubs, they have fun, they create their own fun, do their own fundraising, go and do bus trips or whatever that looks like, and then you've got competition, which is separate. So I've never really got stuck into the competition because I've been on the other side organising too much stuff, so it's a conflict. But yeah, that was coming up.
Right. And your recommendation would be to kids, if again, maybe they don't have the parent, they're not on a farm, it is something that they can go onto the internet, Google Young Farmers in their area, and maybe get involved and be able to at least get some connections going early.
Yeah, definitely. So I think any school can sign up to send their students along to do the contest, which is cool. I've seen Cambridge High in there a couple of years ago, I think up in Hamilton in the final, which was really cool. I was chuffed. I was like, this is amazing. Because yeah, like you said, I remember at high school there probably wasn't many of those ag avenues, so really cool that that's come in now. But yeah, it's a great way to expose themselves, even if they don't know anything about ag. Some of the stuff they have to do, what was it, an 11-year-old I was talking to the other day, they had to, look at a motorbike wheel and then see what was missing off the wheel, and then where the brakes are and how do they fix the brakes, and little things like that. Or they might have, you're in a rural area and there's an emergency, there's a fire, well, here's your 4 things, what are you going to do first to last? And so just little things that, it doesn't have to be just ag, but it's like, how would you approach this scenario? And so that teaches them a lot of different skills too.
Right. In the background, are you farming at all, or are you a more of the office person?
In my day job or at home?
Well, yeah. Well, this is right. Yeah.
So now, I in the office, it depends on the week. I'm not farming myself, but managing the teams who are doing the do. And that's their area of expertise. So yeah, if I can help lead them and stay out of their way, then that is probably it's a good playing to those strengths, as you said earlier. But it depends on the week. Like, I've just been on the phone with all 3 of my farm managers this morning with the cyclone coming, because one of our farms is probably about to flood for the 3rd time in 2 months. And so what does that look like? How do we prepare for that? And then another farm, well, what if something happens there and the power goes out? Are we sorted? So how do you prepare yourselves? But it can depend on the day. It can be that. It can be dealing with all the invoices, contractors, health and safety, anything that comes with the farms that we're managing. Or, hey, how do we grow more beef animals so we can get some more profit? Lots of questions. And then, at home we're farming as well. So in June we took over a 50-50 share milking job. So we get half the milk check from Fonterra and basically spend half the costs, but we own all the cows. We have 290 cows and an equity partner. So he owns half of them and we own half of them. And yeah, I'm not there day to day, but have been milking here and there and things like that when it's really required. But again, like you said, my skill set is that admin sort of background thinking at the moment, because it's really all I've got time for outside of this day job. And so that's how I can kind of bring that to the table, and we've got someone else running it.
Yeah. So you're with Fonterra, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. What range of jobs do you see young people coming into, even just to give us some examples of, I mean, you probably already have in some sense, but what are some of the things you see people arriving to do in Fonterra even?
Really depends. Like if you look at the manufacturing sites, you've got different jobs that, like, to process milk is huge, the amount of different people you sort of need. And you've got different departments. You've got cheese, you've got whey powder, you've got, I don't know, everything, just pure milk, everything else that they make. So it depends. If you're in there's a lot of jobs. There's probably what we see, the stakeholders we deal with, like the irrigation teams, they manage the water going out on the land. And so there's some jobs where they've got to be able to manage things environmentally. You've got people, sort of their managers then, who are doing all the consenting and things like that. That probably feeds into more of what we kind of used to do back at school, in geography. And thinking environmentally. You've got farming side, which we've got, and then teams on the ground who, they might not want to deal with all the buffer of what I deal with Fonterra, but they actually just want to farm and they can do that. So trying to deal with the stock and what's going on around the place and weather and feed. And that's just in my sort of standard jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, my sister's worked for Fonterra for, I don't know, 30 odd years as computer programmer. So, I mean, there's all sorts, eh?
Yeah. Marketing, brands, like you name it, there's, once you're in it, and that's just Fonterra. It's quite interesting because if you look outside Fonterra, it's like, oh, there's actually a whole world, but in Fonterra there kind of is too, just with the diversity of different jobs they've got.
Yeah. How do you see the future farming? Like, I'm starting, obviously from the media, from a public perception, we hear the environmental arguments. There must be stuff you strategically know and do and problem solve around, because some of it's obvious and you would have tactics and science to solve things. How do you see farming in the future for those young kids going, I wonder what it'll look like in 15, 20, 30 years' time?
I think it's going to be a really, really different place in 30 years as what it will be in 10. I've been saying that for the last 10 though. And the reason I say that is if you look at like the average age of our farmers, if you go to a meeting, there is a lot of grey hair in the room and there is no young faces. Or we're getting more and more slowly. But I think that if you look at 10 years, that's going to be a huge change that New Zealand's going to have to face, and probably elsewhere as well. And how they deal with it, I honestly don't know. I think there'll be some advantages with some technology and different things that'll actually come in and start getting used, but you're probably also going to lose a little bit of industry experience that's been there for a long time as well. So things might get done differently because you just don't have that knowledge of how they were done before. 30 years, I reckon, again, the game's going to be different. It depends on compliance. Different places have gone through, making things quite challenging and really compliance heavy and a lot of paperwork, and then they backpedal and go, well, actually, do we need all that, or what's the bare minimum? And so, I think you're always going to see that pull, but technology, I reckon, is going to be massive. Like, if you look at Halter, that's taking the world by storm. Everyone's got different perspectives on it, and rightly so. Different business, different purpose. I think it's a great tool in different people's toolboxes depending on their scenarios. But there's a lot of productivity still to be captured across the place, I'd say. Lots of opportunity is kind of how I see it.
Well, the one thing that doesn't change is we have to feed the world. No matter what you're doing on the land, something's got to come up, whether it be a cow or a crop. We've got to produce stuff, don't we?
You really do. And that's the one thing I remind myself when I'm milking. It's like, oh, this is a kitchen. Like, I'm in a kitchen, I'm making milk for people. And that's what I think, that education piece will probably change over time in a good way.
Yeah. How about your future? How do you see you staying involved, or what are your hopes and dreams?
A few different things on there. Probably didn't touch on that earlier, but with young farmers, finished on the board in November. So very unique to have a board of 4 elected members under the age of 31 and then 3 independents helping support them. So you age out of the organisation and you can't restand for the board, that's unusual. In New Zealand, if you actually look at most of our boards, you've got a lot of experienced people sitting around at the table, and I probably wouldn't even get a look in at this age because I've got a lot to learn. So, that was a huge learning curve, but that's one thing that does feed into my future is governance. Like, I have a strategic brain. I really enjoy that thinking and that future focus thinking and driving things. And so looking into how that's going to play into everything, I don't know yet, but it will. Corey and I will still have the fencing business. That is his niche and he's bloody good at it. So, we'll be keeping that. But I'd probably also like to have a couple shem milking farms because what I'm based around, or my why, is sort of contributing towards evolving the food and fibres industry. So it's actually here for generations to come. So however that looks, is that building a good quality fence that's here for 30 years, or is that farming Fonterra's land so it's still good in 30 years, or is that our own farms and actually being able to tweak things that we want to and feeding the world. So that's kind of 5 years. I'd like to hope there's a couple of those around and a few more cows, which is a bit different to probably what some of my peers might be after in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, because it strikes me as there's no isolation in farming. Like, no matter what you're doing, there's so many people surrounding you that, there must be employment areas that are quite scary. Whereas you go farming, whether you're on the computer, whether you're in the Fonterra milking with all the big vats, whether you're the person milking the cow or doing the fertilizer, everyone's connected. There's support, there's communication. It must be quite a cool feeling.
Yeah, that's definitely how I see it. I think a lot of farmers are probably still getting their heads around that, and I think that's a shift that's still to come. I think the perception used to be, oh, you're farming, you're milking a cow, or you're sheep and beef, you're just dealing with stock. It's way bigger than that, and they're pretty cool businesses to run once you get your teeth sunk into them, if that's what you enjoy. And there's a lot of levers you can pull, like you say, to actually help drive it where you want it, and that's the exciting part. None of them are the same, which is awesome, and you can always keep learning off people. So I think there's a lot of good opportunity in that space.
Cool. So any sort of thoughts for kids who are sitting there, and there are plenty, from your perspective, great industry, lots of potential. It's a great career path. You don't have any major concerns.
No, I don't. And if you don't like something, you can always change because there's lots of options out there. The one thing I did back at high school that I remember, because I wasn't sure, again, like what I wanted to do, I still don't know, but I went out I said to Granddad, just because obviously he's got a fertilizer rep from Ravensdown, funnily enough, and said, oh, look, can you ask her if I can just go out with her for the day just to see what she does for a job? And that was one of the best things I reckon I've done. I've never ended up in that avenue, but that doesn't matter because it was being able to go out with someone, talk to them about their journey, and just understand, hey, what do you actually deal with in your day to day? Like you said, Grace, some of the stuff you can deal with on the phone, or it's just learning, oh, that's what you get exposed to, and that's what that path could look like. And the one thing she always told me was just don't close your mind to anything, because the wider your mind is, you might go, I'm not going to do that option, I don't like that, and I don't like that job. But if you go, I just want to do this one career, for me, that probably could have been quite limiting just with who I am. Keeping it open, it means the world's literally always my oyster, because there's always options, but they just might not fit with my why, and that's fine. You just carry on past until you find something else. So the one thing I'm aware of probably is that not all kids would actually have those contacts because not everyone has someone on the farm or whatnot that they can connect in with. But you can Google Balance Ravensdown, any company, and usually the reps are actually really awesome and will take you out. And like I say, you don't have to get stuck in that job, but it's cool to have that exposure and find out just how people got where they did.
Oh, we got looking at Chloe Jones, I think, by the
Free labour milking cows, eh?
might want to know how to make a perfectly straight fence because there's nothing better than a perfect fence. I'm not mocking when you
No.
try a fence and you put the stay in and it's dead. The pride you get is incredible.
They'll be ringing the wrong person if they ring me. So
Before I wrap up, I'd imagine one thing, if you were that way inclined, there'd be a lot of opportunity overseas because New Zealand is the unicorn of farming. I would imagine if you suddenly went, oh, bugger it, I'm going somewhere, I don't think you'd struggle to find a job.
no, you really wouldn't. We recently actually had a Scotsman over from Scotland, funnily enough. He was 19 and he was awesome. Really cool to get him out here, see the world. He fenced for us and lived with us. But what that probably showed me, I didn't really do the gap year thing. And so I went to uni and that was fine. I think a gap year is actually just as good for you because you can go learn. You learn a lot about yourself when you're traveling the world, as I'm sure you've gone through, Grace, which is epic. And what that probably showed me, like 19 is actually really young. You've got a couple years or more than a couple years up your sleeve before you really need to knuckle down and worry about saving and all that fun stuff that comes later. But yeah, you can just pack up and go, and there's no matter what, whether it's picking, I don't know, fruit in Italy or going to Ireland and farming, there's different places that you can do that. Facebook's pretty good for finding a lot of them, but I think it's important to have some of those experiences at least somewhere along the way because it helps broaden people's thinking too. So
Yeah.
plenty of opportunity in that space. Yeah. And sometimes interesting when you get that perspective overseas, you don't realise how small New Zealand is. Like you say, for New Zealand, yes, it's like farming is a massive, or the food and fibre sector is a huge backbone of it. But actually, when you go overseas and you see some of the scale they operate on, you're like, we're tiny, we're a baby. Yeah, which is pretty cool too.
Oh, look, this has been perfect and exactly like what I'd hoped for. And I know it's taken us a long time to pin you down because you're such a busy person. So I'm glad we have. And it's just great to see you so fit and well and happy with your career because, I mean, ultimately, that's all any of us can ask for. So thanks for all of that. I know Grace has got some questions, but yeah, take care and can't wait to finally run into you maybe in the street,
So won't be on a surfboard, but I'll take the street.
No.
Chloe, I've been thinking because obviously I was privileged enough that I'm a year younger than you, so I was not fangirling, but you're a role model for me. And there's lots of things, but if I keep it on the career one, there is a rise, and Ludlam knows I'm a remote girl. I can work from anywhere because I'm a tech. I'm like on my laptop. This industry, like you were talking about the 150 different farms, how you had to go to got to go to Otago, do this. Like, can you talk a bit about it's not your work from home hybrid situation? Like, this is one where do you reckon it's gonna stay how it has always been, where you're on the farms, you're at the factories, you're doing this, or is there some of that starting to creep in of the remote element? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, I think COVID taught us a lot because in amongst that job, I was 3 or 4 months in, and that was when it hit. And so we obviously still had targets to hit, but Fonterra changed how you could hit them. So that was quite good. And that started sort of the flexibility of working from home. So I think it's going to creep in, Grace, over time, but in the places where you can have it. I find it quite good. I find 1 or 2 days every now and again great to work from home, but also I've learned from myself through a few experiences at work that I actually need a team around me and people at times. Otherwise, if I don't actually have anyone that I'm amongst, I can feel quite isolated. And I imagine some farmers feel like that because our industry isn't perfect, and a lot of people do go through challenges no matter how many people are around them. But yeah, it was certainly interesting being able to see how I could change it, like going from being on the phones and then in front of people. I kind of took the best of both worlds. I would drive, it was about an hour 40 down from our place to some of the farms. And so I'd just stack 3, do them in a day, go home the next day, I'd do all the write up, the report, ring some other farmers like while I was doing that and things like that, deal with calls, anything else that I needed to. And so you can learn to stack things in the right way, which I think that's the advantage that might come in the future, or with it already being here as well, in the industry, sort of for those real professional roles.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, even with the way technology's coming in and incorporating it. So that is something that is exciting, like you said, opportunity to think about how those advancements can make things move easier and make you feel more connected. Final question we always ask is, you've given a lot of great advice to everyone, but if it was Chloe to Chloe back in that year 12, 13, probably when you were saving for the Spirit Outward Bound or something, I remember you doing fundraisers for that. If you could go back and just give yourself some advice, what would it be?
It's a really good question. It's funny, Ludlam, you saying that, like it's great to see sort of, I can't put the exact words back in, but sort of where I'm at and sort of happiness around that and career and whatnot has not been always like that. There's a lot of challenges that come along the way. That's probably another podcast day. But there's a lot of learnings you can get out of life, I think. What I would probably tell myself is just stop before jumping into things and just realize like what you really want to do before saying yes. And that being really clear on that can actually help drive you in the great direction. I don't regret any of the stuff I've done, but at times having too many things on my plate can be a lot. And so, yeah, if I'd done that, I think I might have played to those strengths even better, but still happy with where everything's landed. So I think that's a big thing when you leave school and the world is your oyster. There's so many options. You can say yes to everything, but choose the ones you really want to, because saying no to them is not a bad thing.
That is such a wicked way to finish, because that advice is perfect. Yeah, being a yes person isn't always the best. So look, take care, Chloe. All the best, and thank you so much for supporting us. And we'll get this out because this has been spectacular. So take care of yourself, and we'll look forward to catching up.
Awesome. You too. Thanks, Grace.